let's continue in our study on seeking God. Last week, we talked about maturity, the goals and all. Now let's talk about discipline and training. Say it with me, discipline and training. So, our days, if you will look at the bookstore or for quite some time now, we have a lot of books on how-tos, okay? In fact, I think one of the best sellers is How to Fixing Your House for Dummies, that yellow black book. That thing sold a lot of volumes, which tells me a lot of people think they are dummies. Because it says, fixing DIY for dummies, plumbing for dummies. And so there is this subliminal message, you're a dummy. And so you buy the book. Now you may say, well, I'm not, but that's the title of the book. Okay, so sold a lot of volumes. And then I've noticed that on the internet, there's a lot of self-help videos. And a lot of people are, you look at these exercises and diets, the subscribers, a lot. You know, one of the most obese, I think the most obese country in the world is still the U.S. or something like that. But can you imagine the subscribers of these health pages? 2 million subscribers. All the 2 million are all fats, you know. But we are still the most obese nation. What is going on is this. I think there is a proliferation of message on the power of thinking, the power of imagination. But I'll tell you this, not because you can imagine something means you are that person. Okay, for example, if I imagine I'm 7 feet tall, well, am I going to be a 7-footer guy? No. If I imagine I am white, will the color of my skin change? That's one of the biggest lies there is, that if you can think it, that's yours. If we can think it and it's ours, then all of us will be so successful because we think a lot of fanciful things in our lives. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because you have to really think through the message that are being sent to us. The how-tos caters to your mental need. So not because you can mentally how-to, it doesn't mean it's you. My wife told me that when she was in college, she said, flat-breasted women in college students. Where's my wife? I may be mistaken. Anne, where are you? You're gone. I think they will have an exercise, she told me, that they will stretch and say, I can. I must. Like their boobs will grow because I must, you know. It's not going to happen. You can do I must all you must. There's not going to be any must there, you know. And she proved it right, she said. She was so disappointed because in college she is doing all the I must. There's no must, you know. That means mentally you can say something. It really don't happen. It really don't happen. Have you well, a lot of people here are no longer in the athletics. But when Michael Jordan came up with his shoes, it's called Air Jordan. And then he came up during the era of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. The basketball shorts are really shorts. Michael Jordan started the era of basketball longs, you know. Well, because he is wearing his North Carolina shorts underneath as his talisman, you know. And he will wear it, the new shorts over it. So the long shorts started, and then he shaved his head. Well, because he's got a bad hair. People noticed in his younger days, he was really losing his hair already. So he started, just shave it. So a lot of athletes, including the amateurs and those who are not even amateur, they started shaving their head and wearing those long shorts and buying the most expensive Air Jordans. It didn't improve their games. But then, have you noticed in the playgrounds, the way they walk, they walk like Michael Jordan. The black athletes, they have a certain walk. If you can demonstrate it, don't do that right now. But do it later, okay? But they have a certain walk. You can walk like that, and it's still not going to make you a better athlete. You have to accept there is a limitation of what you think you can that you actually can. Okay? Why? Because in between, there is what you call from I can to I am doing it. There is this period called training and discipline. If you don't have that, you can think all you want. It's not happening. It's really not happening. Now, because of the end of the Brady era, one of the most common thing that I hear about comments about him is mental toughness. You cannot beat him mentally, but daily discipline, consistent, disciplined life. So, with I can do this, with a disciplined life and a disciplined training, he was able to achieve what nobody else was able to achieve in that sports. To date, nobody even came close. I mean, the guy was in Super Bowl more than any other team in their whole existence. I mean, he appeared in the Super Bowl more than any team, including the Niners and the Cowboys. They have been in the Super Bowl. He has been in the Super Bowl more than any of those teams. So that requires a lot of discipline. So it's not just a thinking I can, okay? Have you ever asked your children, because they want to watch TV and they have homework, hey, you've got to finish it. I can do that, Mama. I can do that, Papa. And so they watch TV. After that, you ask, did you do it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm tired. Well, I thought you think you can. You thought you can. Actually, you can't. Why? Because you don't have the discipline that after rigorously watching, you can still control your body, wake up, and be able to finish your homework. And that is the same with Christianity, okay? We are a spirit, we have a soul, and we live in a body. And we have emphasized so much the heart or the spirit. And say we get born again, we're going to heaven. And so we say, well, let's live right. So the pastor said, those of you who wants to live right, raise your hands. They raise their hands. And it has come to the altar, I lay hands on you. And then they lay hands for them to live right. They go back and live worse. No amount of laying on of hands will make you live right. Okay? Now, we know the training in the mind. The Bible says, renewing your minds. So we know that. Your spirit is born again. So now you renew your mind by the Word of God. But wait, when you renew your mind and you say, you decide, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to pray, I'm going to have my meditations, I'm going to have my spiritual disciplines, you will notice that there is one part of your human constitution that needs 100% cooperation. And that is your flesh, your body. Okay? If you say, well, I'm going to have a daily meditation at 6 a.m., your body actually has to wake up. If it's asleep, it won't be able to have meditation. If you say, for example, if you say, okay, this Sunday I'm going to church, and most of you here are disciplined to come to church. But you say, well, I'm going to go to church this Sunday. The service is at 10:30, and you keep saying, I am going to be there 5 minutes before, but you keep failing. Why? Because your body needs to cooperate. Every time I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, because my wife, of course, needs more sleep. She has always needed more sleep. I think the female frame needs more sleep than the male frame. That's not being sexist. That's just being true, okay? So what happened, was I will wake her up at 3:30 a.m. to prepare my clothes. And she will have extreme difficulty. No matter what you do, in decades of being with her, she won't be able to do it. So you know what I do? I tell her, hey, listen, or I'll ask DJ, prepare my pampaligo before you go to bed. Hang it up. And so when I wake up, I don't wake her up anymore. Everything is done. And I've noticed she still struggles because both of us are getting old. So now I'm beginning to say, hey, listen, let's have James, because James is very good at this. Let's have James or John iron my shirt. I don't iron my shirt, although I taught them how to iron it. After I taught them, then they do it, you know. I mean, they have to put into practice what they've learned. So I'll tell James or John, okay, press my clothes in the evening. So in the morning, my wife doesn't have to do it. Because if I don't do that, my goal to be here at 5 is not happening. Not happening. Okay? Because the body, I can be wide awake, and sometimes I'll stand up in the living room saying, Ann, I did not wake up early in the morning to wait for you. Or to wait for... John decided to have mercy on his mother and said, Mama, I will drive Papa now to church. And I'm telling you, so far, he's doing his best, but so far, most of the time, he's asleep. He will call me and say, I'm already in the church. Oh, I set my alarm clock. Well, setting your alarm clock is not the same as waking up. Do you know that, right? You know, my kids set up their alarm clock, like James and Joel is 2 rooms away from me. I will wake up when their alarm clock turns on. That's 2 rooms away, okay? With 1, 2, 3 walls. I can hear it, and they are asleep. I mean, their watches are running out of battery charge, and they're still sleeping. And I'm the one waking up. Why? They don't have the discipline, okay? They don't have the discipline that at the alarm's clock sound, you just spring up. By the way, I don't need the alarm clock to wake me up. Most of the time I wake up ahead of my alarm clock. I just put it there for safety. Okay? Why? Because since I was a little kid, I was trained to wake up early in the morning. That's just the way life is. In the Philippines, it's hard. I used to cook for my kuya to go to his job, bound. So ever since the youngest that I can think of, I was always sleeping early, waking up early in the morning. I fetch water. You cannot be late. I mean, so I always wake up early in the morning. That is training. So right now, I have difficulty actually staying on bed for a long, long time. It gives me back sore. Some of you can be on bed for 12 hours. I admire you, you know. I admire you being glued to that bed. Because after 2 or 4 hours, my eyes every day just wakes up. Doesn't matter how tired I am, it just opens. You know, because I was disciplined and trained that way. Now, let's shift that to spirituality. Because we want to take the same training, how to mature, how to grow in the Lord, in seeking God. You need to be a disciplined person. Say I need to be disciplined. Say it again. Don't say it like you are disciplined, okay? Just pretend, for goodness sake. Say, I need to be disciplined. Oh, you see, it's the same. You're not disciplined enough. Now, that discipline has to be channeled. You need to be trained. Say, I need to be trained. Oh, that's better, okay? So, with that in mind, we cannot possibly grow properly and we'll always go back to our old habits if we are not disciplined and we are not trained in spiritual areas. Let's start by reading from Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 4. Because again, the focus of the church and Christianity has always been the discipline and training of the spirit and the soul. Neglecting the body. The body, you have to attend, you have to pay personal attention to your body. Some of you who slept late last night watching television, Korean soap and Filipino soap, you need to wash yourself. Because what happened is, your body is so tired. Now understand, you're coming to church, you're falling asleep, you know why you're falling asleep? You're tired. Maybe you did not sleep well last night. So naturally, if you don't sleep well last night, you will fall asleep. Okay? Say it's natural. I don't like it, but it's natural. So because I don't like it and it's natural, I naturally don't like it, when you're sleeping while I'm teaching. But if you again did not sleep well last night, you will fall asleep. Okay? That is just how our bodies are made. The Sabbath has 2 commandments. Do you know what they are? No. What are the 2 commandments of Sabbath? 6 days you must work. That's the first part. The reason why there is the 7 days, because first there is 6 days. So the first part of the Sabbath is 6 days you must work. On the 7th day, that's you must rest. Then you must rest. So there are 2 parts. People are ignoring the first part. I mean, if you are resting all week long, every day is your Sabbath. You disobeyed the first 6 days. The first 6 days is 6 days you must work. Now, can you imagine if your week is idle, you are disobedient? Now, I'm not saying in 6 days you are supposed to be employed. Work means work. It doesn't mean employment. But it says 6 days you must work. So if in the last 6 days you did not work, you're idle, you're disobedient. Are you here? Because only when on 6 days you work, then you have a reason to rest on the 7th day. Otherwise, every day is your Sabbath. So there is what you call as preparations needed. And you have to discipline yourself, especially if you're employed. If your employer says you've got to be in the office by 9 a.m., by all means you're going to be there in the office by 9 a.m. and you have disciplined yourself that way. Therefore, you know that physically you can control, you can train your body. Now let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 4, starting on verse 1. Now the Spirit explicitly says that in latter times some will depart from the faith, paying attention to deceitful spirits and the teaching of demons. Through the hypocrisy of liars whose consciences are seared, they forbid marriage and demand abstinence from foods that God created to be received with gratitude by those who believe and know the truth. You see? So even, you have to be very careful when you do a food prohibition. Okay? Because here it's part of the wrong doctrine. When you begin to say, well, it's wrong to eat this, it's wrong to eat that. Now, there are certain food in the scriptures that clearly you must not eat, But if you begin to say all of this food you have been eating it for so long, all food that God created is supposed to be received with thanksgiving. And it says here, one of the Paul's teaching that's going to be happening is, when you begin to say you cannot just, you have to abstain from foods that God created. I mean, so you look at the food that you are eating. Did God create them? If God created them, then you can eat them. Okay? God is really very simple in His rules. It's us human beings who are trying to make it hard. Okay? Abstinence from foods that God created to be received with gratitude by those who believe and know the truth. For everything created by God is good. Say, everything that God created is good. So if God created you, then you are good. Okay? And nothing is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving, since it is sanctified by the word of God and by prayer. If you point these things out to the brothers and sisters, you will be a good servant of Christ Jesus, nourished by the words of the faith and the good teaching that you have followed. But have nothing to do, so after getting all of those things, now in verse 7, the adversative contrast, but have nothing to do with pointless and silly myths. Rather, train yourselves in godliness. Wow. Godliness or living godly life needs training. So if you don't train yourself to live godly life, you will not be able to live godly lives. For the training of the body has limited benefit, but godliness is beneficial in every way. Can you imagine some of us do more body or physical training than training in godliness? But physical training actually has very limited benefit. That's what the Bible says. It has benefits. I'm not saying it has no benefits. It has limited benefits. The one with endless benefits is actually training in godliness, since it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. This saying is trustworthy and deserves full acceptance. For this reason, labor and strive. Now, again, that labor and strive has to be in the context of this writing. So how can we rephrase labor and strive? Train. Okay. Train, because we have put our hope in the living God, who is the Savior of all people, especially those who believe. So now I'm opening up to you this truth that living godly or living for God requires discipline and training. You don't get born again today. You don't put your faith in Jesus today, and then tomorrow you are living 100% right. That's not happening. Okay? If you enlist, for example, or if you join the military, if you enlist and say, I'm going to be a Marine, or I'm going to join the Army, and you sign the papers, and now you're officially part of the U.S. Armed Forces, it doesn't mean you're qualified. It just means you need training now. So you'll go through training and more training and endless training. And the more you train and practice what you're being trained in, the more you will be good in warfare. Colin Powell, he was sent to Vietnam as a major, as a military liaison of the U.S. And during that time, the bullet vest became very popular. And he was showing, it's heavy, he was showing the military in Vietnam. He said, there is a new outfit that we have. It saved a lot of our lives. And so now we are going to give bullet vest to you guys. And the Vietnamese try it on and they say, wow, this is heavy. This is going to affect our mobility and agility. And they keep complaining to Major Colin Powell. But he said, well, I'm here to train you. I'm telling you, you have to wear that. Because U.S. aid is not going to be given if they don't follow. So first event, he said, they have all their bullet vests on. He said, I'm an observer. I'm at the back of the platoon. And he said, the leader went into this water. And they're going to infiltrate an enemy territory. And said, out of nowhere, zing, sniper bullet. Hit and knocked down the person on the lead. Just knocked him down. I mean, it hurts like crazy, but he stood up alive. The bullet would stop. After that demonstration, everybody was willing to wear the bullet vest. But to wear that heavy, have you seen a bullet vest? I mean, it's heavy. You know, if you look at that, you're going to carry it in your patrol, and boy, that's heavy. And so these Vietnamese are a lot more little than the Americans. So they were complaining, we're not going to wear that, but they realized the value. And so a lot of Christians don't train in the area of godliness because they don't see the value, and they don't realize that proficiency and efficiency, of course, in being a Christian, a good Christian soldier, requires discipline and training. The same is true in the area of athleticism. If you don't train, if you don't get discipline, you will not be good. Okay, so first, let's give you some basic whys of discipline and training. Well, in godliness, okay? First, it's because of the last days that we are living in. What's the relationship of last days? There is what we call as spiritual warfare. And right now, I think they are thinking that the Secretary of Defense of Ukraine is making an appeal, please send us arms. because they say that there is a major plan that Putin announced that this coming February, on the first year anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, they're going to have a new wave of invasion. And they say that they're going to be send more arms, more troops. And so the Secretary of Defense is begging, please send us arms. Why? Because Putin is losing, according to news. And so because he is losing, he is intensifying and not ruling out the possibility of using nuclear technology. Why is that? Because it's war. Now, we are living in what we call as the last days. Oh, last day is no longer the right term. Last hour. And the Bible says in the book of Revelation, the enemy is working double time because he knew his time is short. Therefore, there is going to be an intensity. You look at the world around us. The intensity of attack on Christianity. Anti-Semitism grew. And by the way, the moment anti-Semitism grows, anti-Christianity grows. Because you have to remember, we have the same spiritual father. And that is Abraham. And so, the laws that are being passed right now, the communities that are very anti-Christian, has increased. Why? Because we are living in the last hour. The fight I was mentioning last Friday, you can observe there is a violent takeover over our children. I mean, there are, for years now, it started with the Obama administration, they're saying parents must have nothing to do with the education of their children. Can you imagine that kind of garbage being put out? The curriculum in the public school, especially the CPS, is very ungodly. It's a very violent thing, and there's no shame. There is no shame. I mean, democracy is practically lost because in democracy it's what the people want. The people in America are majority conservative. This LGBTQ is a very small population. But there is an agenda, okay? What is that agenda? It's the overtaking of the atheists, and it is very, can you imagine right now, a lot of Christians can't even say I'm a Christian in public. They're afraid, okay? You can't even say sometimes, let me pray for you in public. Some people are just ashamed. No, my wife is not ashamed. It could be in the coffee line, and if somebody needs a prayer, she will pray for that person right there. Most people are not like that, okay? Why? Because it's a violent takeover. The government wants to take over our children, and it's only in communism and socialism that happens. But that is very violent. They are encouraging divorce. They are encouraging unfaithfulness in the family. They're saying that in a marriage life of a couple, having 2 or 3 affairs is normal. That's what they're saying. That's very violent. And if you say, well, you know, my husband or my wife commit adultery, oh, that's one of those. It's okay. It's okay. I remember having a conversation with somebody, and the woman was being encouraged to do something about the husband. And somebody says, well, separate from your husband. And one guy there says, hey, before you separate from your husband, think about your sex life. I said, what do you mean? Well, you will have needs for sex. If you don't have a husband, what are you going to do? So what this guy is saying, and he's a Christian, what he is saying is, for the sake of sex, you tolerate immorality. Live with an adulterer. There's no more standard there, you see. And this is what I'm trying to say. This is a very intense spiritual warfare taking place. Very intense. If you are blind or you refuse to see, you will never see it. But the violent takeover is almost very physical. I mean, it's being ripped right in front of our eyes. And so because of that, we have to be disciplined and we have to be trained. Second, deception takes place among those who are not disciplined and trained. They could not distinguish right from wrong. Paul puts it in the book of Hebrews that by reason of use, you're able to distinguish right from wrong, good from evil. A lot of Christians today doesn't even know. You mean what's wrong with homosexuality? You call yourself a Christian and you don't know what's wrong with that? What's wrong with disobedient and rebellious still children? You're part of the faith community and you don't know that. You know why you don't know that? You have not been trained. You see, you have not been trained. And if you are not trained, you don't know the difference. That's why we are smiling at the devil. Because, by the way, the devil doesn't look like those images that you see in the caricatures, black with horns, long tails. My Bible tells me he always transforms himself like an angel of light. He looks beautiful. Have you ever seen a model who is almost naked, who is fat and ugly? Nobody will buy. The devil always transforms himself like an angel of light. He looks good. She looks attractive. That's the devil. And because of that, we are not trained to distinguish. We don't know which one is which. I mean, I have seen parents, the kids are already cursing in front of them, and they're smiling. Some of you, your kids are failing in school, and you're smiling. You're setting up your kids for failure, and you're smiling. You don't know the distinction. You're not trained properly. Okay? That's why you need, I remember my first rifle training. We were on the top of the range. I don't know where it is, Philippines. Yeah? It's a golf course. There are people playing golf, but there's a big wall, and so we have our M1s and Springfield rifles. You know what they'll give you. We're given full of bullets, and then the range master will say, aim! So we aim, you know. While we were aiming, one of the students, I don't know what he was thinking, he kept laughing, and he was swinging his M1 was heavy. What we have was made out of wood. So he was raising it up like that. I remember the drill sergeant. He comes cursing, took off his hat, and hit the cadet get out of here! The guy was beside me. Whoa, I better be disciplined. Just hit him. You can kill people that way. Just hit him at the back of the head. And said, get out of here. You're not following instructions. That's called discipline. Now you yell at a person undisciplined like that, you yell at somebody like that today, they're going to say, you're not considering my feeling. Feeling. Pilingin kita rin. That's a bullet right there. The moment the bullet leaves the barrel of the gun, it's to whom it may concern. Okay? So you have to be disciplined how to handle these things. Why? Because if you lack that, you could put people in jeopardy or in trouble. So, some people doesn't know anymore what is right and wrong. How do I know that? You listen to some of the counselings I do. Pastor, see, is it okay? I am married, but I like looking at pornographic pictures. You're asking me this question? I mean, you're actually asking me this question? What happened to your conscience? They are not trained. Because in some circles, it's okay. It's really okay in some churches, it's okay to commit adultery. In some churches, it's okay to sleep with your boyfriend or girlfriend without being married. It's okay. Not in the Bible. But if you are not trained in the truths of the Bible, then it's okay. And by the way, they call themselves Christians also. That's called training in godliness. And deception is too much nowadays. There's a massive proliferation of atheistic and immoral materials that if you don't have the discernment and the knowledge of the scriptures, you will think it's okay even when it's not okay. Third, lack of discipline and training leads to a seared conscience. That's why don't be surprised, for example, if the truths you're learning from Lion's Heart is not being learned somewhere else. Why? Because their consciences are seared. You know, your conscience. So somebody was telling me in my house, you mean Biden is not a Christian? I said he has a Christian religion, but certainly he's not a Christian. A Christian doesn't sign on the murder of unborn babies. I mean, my Bible tells me that even Jeremiah, even before he was born, God already called him. My Bible tells me that John the Baptist was full of the Spirit and was prophesying while in his mother's womb. My Bible tells me while Jesus was in the womb of Mary, he leaped already at the sound of the prophecy. You see? It's because I know my Bible, I'm trained in these things. And so I can make a distinction. But you say you're a Christian and you sign into law the murder of 60 million American babies. You've got to be kidding me. We decry the outrage of the murder that Hitler did. But do you know that Israel had murdered more babies through abortion than what Hitler did? That's what you call as the searing of the human conscience. When something is wrong and you don't know how to make a distinction, you are not trained in godliness. Listen to any Israeli prime minister talk about defending Israel against terrorism, against Iran, against any country that will threaten its existence. It doesn't matter if it's the Likud party or whatever party it is. The moment you say something against the existence of Israel, they have one voice. They have been trained that way. They have been trained that way. They will kill you. They will defend their nation. It doesn't matter if they have the U.S. with them or not. They are trained that way. As little kids, they are trained that way. As young men and women, they are to do compulsory military service. They are wired that way. We are not wired that way. You know, criminals are already running in our streets, and we are talking about human rights. You know, when we are not supposed to be even talking about them. Why? Because we are trained. We are wired differently. I was watching something with my wife, a Filipino show. I think it was boxing or something. And how this guy was fighting like crazy. He won, Filipino. Well, my wife was saying, you know why that guy is boxing that way, even if he's bloody? I said, I know why. Because he goes home, if he doesn't win, his family cannot eat. You know why boxing is sports for poor people? Because all you need to do is to be able to receive punches and destroy somebody in front of you. Then you can have an economic uplift. It's a poor man's sport, as they call it. You're actually putting your life on the line every time you step on the ring. But you have no other choice. You have no other choice. You see? So this is just training, discipline, training, discipline. If you want to be a serious boxer, they say that, I don't know why they like Las Vegas, the venue, but Las Vegas has destroyed a lot of boxers, especially the first-time comers to Las Vegas. Boy, they see the nightlife. They have a fight the following day. They stay all night. That's it. Lack of discipline. And they lose the fight. Training, of course, number 4 reason, training in godliness will turn us into good servants of Jesus Christ. Servant must be interpreted as soldiers in this context. How do you know you are a good soldier, or how do you know you're a good servant? Number 1, you are nourished by the words of faith. If you are an athlete, you eat a certain way. My wife, their family has they were boxing promoters before. And they house boxers. And my wife said that their boxers eat better food than they do. Now, I don't know what she means by that, okay? Because those boxers are being bred to be strong and to be able to sustain punishment. Well, they are not, you know. They have colds, they go to the hospital, so they don't need to eat the food of boxers. But they say, well, the boxers eat better. Well, you don't feed those boxers, you kill them. You really kill them. You have to. I remember the match between Ivan Lendl and Michael Chang of Korea. That is the French Open years ago. Okay, I think Ivan Lendl lost 5 pounds that match. It went long. And Michael Chang won his only Grand Slam. But can you imagine losing 5 pounds in a match? And they were just eating bananas in between. That requires a lot of discipline and tenacity. You know, and if you don't have that, you cannot be a world champion. So servants must be read here as soldiers. Again, you are nourished by the word of faith. If you want to be disciplined in godliness, first and foremost, you need to be nourished by the words of faith, not the words of doubt. Okay? Not the words of doubt. If you grow up thinking you will not be able to succeed as a Christian, that it's all the same, you're not going to be able to live right, that's negative thought. If you say, well, I will be defeated, I will fall into temptation, I'll keep going back into the same rut, then you will fail. Because you need to be nourished by the word of faith. You will notice that when you begin to eat right, your body will feel right. Now, you couple that eating right with disciplining your body, you will feel better. You know, all of us here, I suppose, except for a few, we have problems with gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. We're like a pendulum, we just keep swinging. You know, and you will notice the change physically. Because of COVID, I stopped going to the gym. You know, I have a couple of exercise equipment in the house, but it's less motivating for me, you know. I always like to be challenged. And some of you, when you work out, you listen to music. I don't like to listen to music when I'm working out. Joseph asked me, what, Papa, you just run? I said, yeah, no music? No. Actually, I count when I run. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll count up to 110. Why 110? I don't know. But after 110, I'll go back to 1. I keep asking, why do I stop at 110? But I will count up to 110. After 110, I'll go back to 1. Why it's not 111? I have no idea. But I was just like that ever since, up to 110. You know, so Joseph said, because my kids, when they exercise, they have all these gadgets. You know, they have something in their ears. I don't want anything in my ears as much as possible. I want to be aware of everything that is happening. But they have all this music, they play this. I don't play anything. You know, even in my car, I don't like radio. I don't like music in my car. My family likes them. That's why I'm always overpaying my cars. If there is a car with no radio, none of those things. If it runs and it has AC and heat, I'm set. Okay, that's it. But some people have all of these things. So, because of COVID, I was not able to go back to the gym. I'm telling you, I felt the change physically. I could not climb up the stairs anymore straight one step. I have to go like this. You know, and my wife was insisting when I was building the house that there should be no balusters. We have a wide staircase, 4 feet. And she said, no balusters. Now she's telling me, because she's also, you know, I cannot only get old. She is also getting old, you know. Women sometimes don't want to accept. Mentally, they're saying, I'm not old. This is one of those things I'm telling you. You can mentally say, I'm not old. Look at yourself. You are old, okay? So not because you think you're not old, it doesn't translate that you are young. No, you are old. So my wife is telling me now, sweetheart, you know, there's a car that I want DJ to have my wife buy for me, okay? But she has to buy it. And my wife is excited until she finds out what that card is. But she is feeling it. I mean, have you noticed, you girls, when you were young, your body is like Coke. Now it's, I mean, I don't know what that is, you know. It's a spring. No matter what you do, it really changes. And you will begin to see. Why? Because your body is changing. Oh, I felt it. You know, we went to Egypt. First day, my wife is laughing at me so hard. we were walking in this pavement, and first time I've seen a street with a beveled edge. It's made out of, how do you call it, limestone, but a beveled edge. I slid, and when you're sliding, you know it. So I started sliding. So that's why I don't believe if you think you can, it means you can. No, it doesn't. So when I was sliding, I see myself sliding. I said, because I used to have very strong legs. So I said, I'm going to stop it. So I stopped the thing, and after I stopped the thing, my knees gave in. In front of everybody, I fell. And Filipino pride, after you fall, you want to stand up. I could not stand up. My wife has to pull me up. And so she said, are you okay? Of course you have to say, I'm okay. I'm a man after all. I'm okay. When I saw it, I said, man, that's pitiful. So the following day, I brought out my cane. I always have a cane with me when I travel, because I don't want to keep embarrassing myself. I never thought when I was young I will carry a cane. Now, of course, I have another one. I have what you call as the hiking sticks. It's a glorified form of cane, but it's tracking poles, yeah. And it's worse because it's two, A cane is only one. So, but you begin to see that. So you nourish yourself with the words of faith. You don't get negative like some people. You follow what you are nourished with. Not only are you being nourished, you follow what you are nourished with, the good teachings. Whatever you're being taught, you do that. And have nothing to do or avoid pointless and silly myths. Yeah. Now, this is part of training in godliness. If you don't train yourself in godliness, what will happen? You will listen to silly myths, endless genealogies. That's what you're going to listen to. I mean, some of you who are into Korean soap and Filipino soap, and you think it's you, why don't you change that into reading the Bible and reading good books? See what happens. It'll change. I mean, I know it changed my wife, because there were times my wife will be very upset. Where did you come from? Huh? I mean, she was asking, what are you watching? All I watch is Chinese Kung Fu, I mean, if I'm upset, I watch Chinese Kung Fu. If everybody is noisy in the house, I watch Chinese Kung Fu. Why? I don't understand Chinese. You depend on the subtitle, If I'm really upset, I watch The Godfather. Now that's English. Okay, so, but I've noticed, I said, what is this jealousy that my wife is spitting out on me? By the way, I just don't tolerate those things. So she was becoming very jealous. I said, what have you been watching? But the good thing about smart TVs now is, even if you're not smart, they are really smart. You can look at what people watched. I look at the thing, all I can see are Filipino soap and Korean soap, so I got upset with I said, stop watching this garbage. You are beginning to think you're the one in the character. And I'm the bad husband. I said, stop doing these things. Because sometimes she'll be jealous. I said, knock it off. Yeah, I will not tolerate those things. Some people tolerate. I just won't. It's a waste of my time. You see. Why do I do that? Because I'm a soldier of Christ. I have no time for those garbage. Can you imagine me going to mission? Who did you eat with in mission, sir? Where did you go? What hotel? Is there anybody there? I mean, can you imagine being bombarded by those questions? I'm not an adulterer. I don't entertain that idea. Why? I train myself to be faithful to one woman. And that's just my training. I train myself on that thing. She keeps telling me, well, when I die, are you going to get married? I say, stand up your business. You're dead. But I have no plans of getting married. As I'm telling you, I learned my lesson. But this is what you call as training. And so when you have a training like that, then you act differently. But if you are filling yourself with garbage, that every time your husband leaves the house, you think he is womanizing, or every time your wife leaves the house, she's doing something crazy, that's very unhealthy. It will drive you nuts. Gotta renew your mind. Either you trust the person or you don't trust the person. Now, having said that, that is also in the training of godliness. Notice in verse 8 how Paul contrasts physical training with training in godliness. Like he was saying, even as you train physically like this, you have to train in godliness like this. Same word, training. Godliness is piety and loyalty to God and to the faith. This has a physical element, meaning if you are being trained in godliness, in loyalty to God, in loyalty to your faith, your body has to cooperate. There is a physical element. You cannot come to church without being here. Some people use the phrase, I was explaining it yesterday. Some people use the phrase, Paul said, though I am absent in the body, I am present with you in the spirit. That passage only applies to ministers like me, not to you. It was never used to membership. Membership, you have to be physically there. But because Paul was a spiritual father, and he leads a lot, he said, well, I have reports that this garbage is going on in Corinth. He said, I have reports, and I heard it, I'm praying for all of you. Now I have talked to God, and I have done the following things. By the way, this Sunday when you gather, although I am not there, I am with you in the spirit. That's done by a minister. It's not applied to members. You see, that's the difference. Now, the same thing in terms of command, same military command. Your commander is not in the field, but he's with you. He's with the monitors, and he's even directing sometimes what you're doing, but he's not there. But he's with you in spirit. He will tell you. That's the same principle. So here, godliness has to be translated into physical life, physical element. Meaning, your flesh follows. How do you know your flesh is following the training of discipline? It will affect the way you conduct yourself. It will affect the way you dress. It will affect the way you talk. It will affect the way you think. It will affect the way you conduct yourself in front of others. Now, challenge. Have you seen me being touchy to a lot of women? I'm not trained that way. Yeah, I'm not trained that way. Filipinos is a hugging and kissing culture. You will not find me that way. Yeah. I'm not trained that way. Yeah. Because I am aware that as a man, my body reacts with a person of opposite sex. I'm not like these people, oh, sister, especially the beautiful ones, hello. I'm not like that. I'm not into kissing. I only kiss my wife and my kids. I'm not any in those things. I'm trained that way. You see, and the young people say, well, you know, different culture. Yeah, and your culture is adulterous and immoral. That's why a lot of our young people sleep with their boyfriend and girlfriend without being married. You are trained that way. That's the difference. I'm not trained that way. Okay? I'm just not wired that way. You know, except perhaps for old people. That I don't mind, but young ones come to me trying to hug, I'll just, hello, and extend my hand. I'm trained that way. That's how I grew up. And when I become a Christian, that's how I was in the church as well. Even with the changing cultures. Because I know what my flesh is capable of doing. Therefore, I have trained myself that way. I'd rather be super safe than fall into sin. Okay? Now, you ask yourself now if you are being trained in godliness properly. Listen to yourself talk. In fact, you can even put it simple. You kids, how do you talk to your parents? If the way you talk to your parents is very disrespectful, you are not trained in godliness. parents, how do you talk to your kids? If you have no respect for your kids also, then you're not. Husbands and wives, how do you talk to each other? You see? Siblings. Wow. I'm telling you, this includes my kids. The way they talk to each other sometimes offends me. And so I have to give them a little bit of encouragement. Because they think it's cool to just be disrespectful of each other. Training in godliness is not like that. If you are trained in godliness, you will be respectful in your speech. Are you listening? I like the Filipinos because we have a respect particle, po and opo, right? You will have dito po ang daan. You know, I'm telling you, Americans offends me because of the way they talk. Okay, can you imagine children calling their parents by first name? My kids calling me by first name, I'm gonna slap them, silly. And that's not a figure of speech, guys. When my kids address me, they address me as mama or papa, sir or mom, but no calling of the first name. Yeah, that's not allowed. I'm trained that way. I've noticed that in this culture, even, you know, one of the things I didn't appreciate is when Biden, I did not vote for him. I will never vote for him. When Biden slipped on the airplane, a lot of conservatives were laughing at it and putting it up on television. Don't do that. I mean, even if you don't vote for him, he's still the president of the U.S. And he needs to be respected that way. But our culture is very disrespectful. When Trump was president, the same thing with the other side. The disrespect is too much. And that translates into our individual lives. We think it's okay to be like that. No, it's not okay. If you are trained in godliness, you know it's not okay. Are you here? But if you are not trained in godliness, you are listening to me and saying, what is that guy saying? Some of you may want to go to the bathroom right now and pretend you need to use it. You know. This is what I'm talking about when we talk about the training in godliness. You have to be very conscious about what you're doing with how you live. Again, listen to how you talk. Listen to how you think, what you like, the places that you want to go to. Why will I go to questionable places if I'm training in godliness? You have to be very careful. I was walking with a soldier, a U.S. Army sergeant in Israel, and I got lost. Now, he's trained to be watchful over eyes that may kidnap him because he's an active military serviceman. We were coming from the Western Wall. We prayed there. And so I've been to the Western Wall several times. Whenever I'm in Israel during the time, every night I'll go to the Western Wall. So I know the place, you know. I know how to walk back, and I will just walk. This time I got lost, and he told me, Pastor, do you know how we get back to the hotel? I said, yeah, I know. I made the wrong turn, you know. And as we were walking, he was very worried. Pastor, this doesn't look right. I was feeling okay, you know. I have no problem with the street people. I grew up with street people. So I said, we're okay. I know the place, you know. But the more we go in, then I begin to notice because he keeps talking. He said, look at their eyes. I said, what eyes? Well, I realize he is white. And he looks like a soldier. And I begin to understand, I don't look white. And I don't look like a soldier. I mean, you think those people will pay attention to a Filipino? But he is white and he is military built. And so he kept telling me, oh, I'm getting nervous. And so I said, whoa. I said, oops, I made a mistake. We turn around right away, But he's very conscious of an area that I am not conscious of. I am not conscious of that. Because generally I think generally they look okay to us, They look favorably to us. We look like them, or we have no inhibitions over these things. But I have to be sensitive to my friend, because he's an American soldier in a Muslim quarter, and he was scared, you see. But that is sensitivity, okay? Now, physical training has limited benefits. Now, there are those in the ancient world who demand certain physical training for their religion. Now, I know you are aware of this. For example, in Buddhism, they have what they call the Shaolin monks. Some of them are trained to fight. That's why they are fighting monks. And so they are monks, but they are fighters. In the Catholic Church, they have what they call as the Jesuits. A lot of the Jesuits were involved in soldiery. They can really fight, okay? And so when Sergius de Loyola founded that after studying in Paris, he decided that the Roman Catholic Church needs to have an arm that can confront violence like that. So he built the Jesuit movement. And so we understand that. In some circles, if you are, well, I don't know if this is true, but I was told that if you are training to be a priest, before you are ordained, you have to go out, I think, for 1 year and live with the world and see if you will be tempted. See if physically you can oppose that. Then after you pass that, then you can be ordained. I think her uncle went out and did not pass, got married while she was out, I have a professor in college. He was supposed to be a priest. He during that 1 year period, he found a girl that he fell in love with and made the girl pregnant. So he did not become a priest. So I don't know if that is still true today. But there are physical rigors involved. Sometimes they will require you to fast. Monday, they will require you to fast. Some of these religions, there is a dietary restriction. Like some are just vegetarians. So physical training, you see. Some orders are very good in terms of music, and you should. There is a. I don't know if this is true, but I think in Vatican, if you will be part of their choir, the training is rigorous. And I think in the ancient time, if you are a boy, if you're going to be part of their choir, I don't know if it's true, but this is what I was told in the old times. You will be castrated. Okay. The reason why I know that is because one of my pastors in the past has a very good voice. He's a tenor. And so he was offered to be part of that choir, but he doesn't want to be castrated. Whether that is a true story or not, I do not know. But religion always, some of this religion always involves physical training. And so Christians think, after they get born again in the New Testament, that is true with them. So they think that when you do certain things, some people think if you come to church 3 times a week, you will be okay. It's not a guarantee you will be okay. Some people say that, well, if you really love the Lord, you will wake up at 4 a.m. and pray for 3 hours. Some people can't do that. Well, they say, well, how about the Koreans? They pray a lot. Well, because the background of the Koreans, in the height of Christianity there, is they were Buddhists. And they were trained to pray that way. And so they carry on that training when they become born again. And so they naturally pray that way. Filipinos are not trained that way. Okay, so we need to train ourselves in godliness. So this is not about going to the gym. Gym in the ancient times also become part of the religion. And in the gym in the ancient times, they go there naked. It's a university. But they go there naked. They run the race naked. And so there's a lot of homosexuality taking place in there. Training in godliness is beneficial in every way. Why? Because it affects not only the now, but the hereafter. More benefits. Now, listen. I know when you became a Christian, or when did you get born again. But understand this: we were a fallen people. Okay. Nobody need to teach us how to sin. You don't need to teach a child how to lie. They naturally lie. Okay? And we grow up that way. Again, depending on when you get born again. So now, you grow up lying, and it's okay. In a fallen society, it's okay. Because not only are we fallen, we are living in a very fallen world. You know, I don't know how you grew up. Some people grow up in a shielded community. There is a guard at the gate. Some of us, we don't have a gate. You know, you have to provide your own security. Some of us use dogs. We train dogs for security, but different community. But the moment you're exposed, the way we violate each other is really false. Can you imagine a group of men giving drugs to a young woman? Okay? They call it the date rape drug. And the woman is very conscious. She is aware she is being raped. She wants to resist. She wants to talk. Nothing is coming out. And so these men gang raped her, and she knew it, so she wants to fight. She's not moving. After she was raped that way, they threw her in the middle of the street, naked, threw her out. That's a true story. That's how evil this is a fallen world. I was asking one of my friends, why do you, that this was before I started having children, why do you train your children that way? He was very strict. And he looked at me and said, Jose, don't you know the world we're living in right now? This is a violent world. It's a mean world. You think the world will care about your daughters? Even some fellow Christians. Can you imagine a fellow Christian falling into sin, inviting other fellow Christians to fall into the same sin? This is a violent world. Yeah. They will steal from you. They'll kill you. Women, they'll make you pregnant and then leave you alone to suffer. That's how violent this is. People will steal from you. People will shoot you for no reason. This is how violent this is. You know, and after you have worked all your life and something was taken from her, her lifetime savings since she was 9 years old, over $250,000 pesos, was just stolen from her by a fellow Christian. That's how violent. Therefore, you need to be aware of that. So when people smile at sin, I don't know what you're smiling at. You think the world will be merciful to our kids? You know, we were in Egypt, and I told my wife, don't entertain those peddlers, you know, because I know how they behave. Some of my American fellow students will entertain, and boy, they will have a hard time. And she laughs at me, and she told me I was mean. Somebody approached me, I said, I don't need that. I will raise my voice. And they leave me alone. Some people who are nice, they are not left alone. And I will look at my wife and say, see the difference? I said, they know it. They can look at my eyes, and they know I'm serious. And we were passing through this, and everybody was being screened for nothing. Some of these people were just screened for nothing. Oh, yes, thank you. They came to me and said, why? And my wife said, what did you do that? I said, you watch. Why? I was already screened. They let me go. Yeah, that's in Egypt. And my wife said, why did you do that? I said, I know how they think. But ignorant people don't know how to talk to these people. You see?
The world that we are living in is fallen. We were fallen. This is a violent world. Don't think it's nice. The God of this age is Satan. That's whom they worship. They'll put your kids into drugs until they are destroyed. Can you imagine even our government is being used by that, passing laws that legalize illegal drugs? Those drugs were harmful when I was growing up. It started when I was in elementary. We were warned extensively on the ills of the... How can it be okay today? If you're using your head, it's still not okay. But they're trying to make it okay. This is how bad and violent this world is. So because of that, it can inflict damage on your life. You've got to discipline yourself. You've got to carry yourself well spiritually. The Bible used disease metaphors to describe how sick we were. When you talk about leprosy in the Bible, it's talking about sin is leprous, blindness in the Bible, deafness, muteness, death. All kinds of disease in the Bible are metaphors for our spiritual malady. But not one sickness can describe our spiritual malady. So the Bible used all sickness, including death, to describe a spiritual malady. For us to understand, and really, do you know the full extent of what cancer will do to you? Do you know the full extent? I mean, look. My sister-in-law, she is an OB-GYN, and she goes with us when we do medical missions. So she will do, what's that procedure, Ann? Pap smear. And she was telling my wife, she was treating wives in the Philippines, I think including a few singles. She will do pap smear, and she will say, I pity these wives. And she said, why? They have polyps. No, I don't know what polyps are, but she said, this is because of sexually transmitted disease. And my wife says, how do they get that? Are they promiscuous? Her sister says, their husbands are fooling around. And they have STDs. And they don't even know it, or they know it, but they are sleeping with their wives knowing they have STDs. That's how cruel the world is. Can you imagine if you have venereal disease and you can have sex with your wife or your husband? That's how cruel a person can be. And so, spiritual warfare is no joke. That's why we need this training in godliness so that we can live right and protect ourselves. It's just like any other thing, I'm not opposed to guns, but I'm not somebody who just hold a gun. I'm trained properly. Since I was in high school, I have been trained in that. I go to the range. I do dry firing in my house on a regular basis. Because I know these are the essential elements to make sure that I'm safe with my weapon. And if you don't know how to do those things, don't own a gun. Because then you're dangerous. You don't know how to own one, you see. But this is what I'm saying. Godliness is the same. It's intentional. You have to be trained. So depending on when or where you get born again, we have to overcome these sinful lifestyles. We were used to sinning. You have to overcome lying. You have to start training yourself how to tell the truth. And I'm telling you, telling the truth, if you are not trained to tell the truth, is hard. Because you have to be honest, and you can pay for the consequences. What if your mom asks you, what's wrong with you? You're not paying attention in school. And you're a guy and you say, well, I just got my girlfriend pregnant. Instead, because of training in lying, you will not tell, I'll just have the baby aborted so nobody knows, as if nothing happened. Something happened. But if you are trained to lie, then you will sear your conscience. That's why we need to be serious about this godly training. It doesn't come by the laying on of hands. People can lay hands on you all you want, and nothing is going to happen. You've got to live right. It includes weaning yourself out of selfish ambition, greed, pride. Oh, it requires utmost discipline. You know my son Joseph. He was fat. You know. I think he still is. You know, if he is watching. But he fell in love with the Air Force. Yeah. And he fell in love into running. He's a marathon runner. And when I say a marathon runner, he runs the marathon, okay? He doesn't think about running. He's got all the shoes and all the gadgets. What amazed me was when Joseph got into this thing, the boy will train like crazy. He used to hide chocolates under his bed because we will stop buying them. Joseph will hide chocolates under his bed. So in the middle of the night while I'm snoring, he is eating, you know. And so he was getting big. But when he began to hone himself, and he's a lot stronger than me now, you can offer him something and he will say, no. And then he will say, look, I have to go to bed now. That's 9 p.m. I have not even taken my dinner yet. I have to go to bed. I said, why? I'm going to wake up at 4 in the morning. I'm going to go to the gym at 5. I said, what in the world is that? He said, well, I've got to train myself. Can you imagine if you translate that into reading your Bible, meditation? Don't take those totally. But if we will just spend enough time training ourselves in godliness, our Christian lives will be stronger and better. You know. But of course, because we're running short of time, I'm going to tell you the specific areas of training tonight. You know, this is. So what did I do today? Well, this is introduction. Okay. We train because spiritual growth does not happen by accident. It's not by, you have to do it on purpose. Now I'm aware that God sends teachers and mentors to help us. I have them. They are teaching on growth and how to overcome. But history tells us, and those who came before us agreed, that God's grace should not preclude cooperation. You have to cooperate. We need to do something about our situation. If I don't like, for years, I don't like my finances. I like them a lot now, you know. But I don't like my finances for decades. So me and my wife talked. I said, I am too busy, I can't handle the money. So I turn over the money to her because she's an economist. She's very good at handling money. And she said, you give the money to me, I'll pay off our debts. I'll discipline ourselves. There were days I could not even go to McDonald's without asking my wife first. Can I go to McDonald's? Can you imagine, you are a 30-year-old man calling your wife, can I go to McDonald's? We did that. She prohibits me from buying anything. The only thing that she can touch are my books and my computers. But I could not buy a shoelace. But we discipline ourselves. Discipline ourselves. We pray. We were very faithful in paying our tithes and giving our offerings. We did all of that for decades until we became debt-free by the blessings of God. Yeah. But that doesn't happen overnight. It's purposeful. We don't go to unnecessary expenses. I could go to any car dealership right now and come out with 3 brand new cars. I won't do that. Why? Because I need more stability financially. There are more things that are more important to me than those things. You see, that's what you call as discipline. There were times, because I pity my wife when she's driving in the middle of winter, and she will call me and say, "Sweetheart, my car is stalled. It needs jump start." I said, "Ann, I'll just buy you a new car." I said, "You're a woman after all." I said, "I'll buy you a new car so you don't have to worry about changing tires and this and that." And she said, "No." She said, "You come here and change the tires." It's good for her to say, you know. When she was working, DJ was begging, "Mama, give me a day off." Because the car was not working. They had to take the bus, and it was winter. I said, "Ann, I'll buy you a new car." She said, "No, we've got to pay our debts." That's how we pay our debts. Not because somebody laid hands on us. It was discipline. It was training. Same thing with living for God. You don't have to tell me to come to church early. You don't have to tell me to wake up at 3:30 in the morning every Sunday. You don't have to tell me to read my Bible. I do them every day. I read every day. Yeah. Training. Okay? Tonight, I will teach you on the specific areas of training in godliness. That if you do these things, you will be on your way to maturity and stability in your Christian walk. Okay, let's all stand. Praise God. Hallelujah. Did you learn something this morning?